Seven on Sundays podcast is intended for mature audiences. Episodes discuss sensitive and fraught topics that many teens and 20-somethings face, but may be triggering. The content may not be suitable for all audience members. Please take caution when listening.
I would run around naked every day of my life. I love being naked. I love my body. I love all of that. But I was like, but I'm definitely wearing underwear. Like, I hate the way that I look. I hate that. Like, something about my vagina I've always hated. And my friend was like, no way. Like, me too. I don't mind ever being naked, but something about it I don't like. And it was something we were all understanding each other on. And we were laughing. Obviously, at the time, we were like, that's so hysterical. Like, I've never heard anyone else say that. But once the conversation came about, I realized how many other of my friends felt the same way that I did.
Hello and welcome to Seven on Sundays, the podcast about how young adults are navigating sex, relationships, and life today.
We are your hosts, Dr. Shez Leby and Stephanie Boy, and each week we will share our candid conversations with young adults and experts about today's tough topics.
Today we are digging in with an anonymous guest named Teddy. And I think this is one of the most important issues that culturally we do not discuss. Don't get me wrong, we talk about it in very derogatory, shaming, disrespectful, negative ways, but the broader, more important and uncomfortable conversations are not something that we have. I'm talking about genital shaming and its evil step sibling, genital dysmorphia. Genital dysmorphia describes the mental health condition where a person spends an inordinate amount of time worrying about what is wrong with their genitalia, real or imagined. That's really important to understand. And imagined because we have this standard set by porn. So this topic is important to me because it is incredibly pervasive. It's disturbingly destructive in both males and females. And the byproduct of this most unhealthy industry, porn, which I happen to know a lot about. So I know the genesis of this problem very well. I have talked to people who, because of genital shame, have been unable to have sexual relations or even a partner sometimes. They've had cosmetic surgery, and in extreme cases, they have come close to suicide. So we need to begin young, naming all body parts. Parts that do not get named become objects of shame. Using proper terminology is not sexualizing or perverting, which a lot of people like to think about. Not naming something actually begins a shame cycle. Our vulvas become unmentionables. If my parents are not willing to say the name of these things, there must be something wrong or bad or shameful about it. Here's a fact. Children who are comfortable with the proper terminology for their genitalia are less attractive to pedophiles. You need to hear this. This is like studies have been done. Because if a child knows the name for their body parts, it sends a signal to would-be creepers, pedophiles, that this child is talking to the adults in their life. They even discuss and talk about body parts without shame. This is probably a child who will talk to their parents if I do something to them. So this is the number one reason, in my opinion, well, also to get rid of cultural shame around our body parts, to talk to your children and properly name something. Additionally, should something, God forbid, ever happen to our children, it gives them the proper language to communicate with doctors, nurses, police, etc., about exactly what happened to them and to which parts of them. So we do not do our children any favors when we call their vaginas or vulvas a cookie or a foofer. We don't do our children any favors when we call a penis a Peter or a wee-wee. I have a lot to say on this topic. I feel very passionately about it, but you can read that in our forthcoming book and get more information on this topic. However, I do want to encourage everyone to think about the comments you make regarding imperfect or, in your opinion, perfect genitalia. By this, I mean size, shape, color, smell, feel, appearance, all things that people say, whether joking or not. Your throwaway comment is unknowingly, hopefully not knowingly, hurting people. These thoughtless comments can send people into a shame, self-hate cycle. I would like to propose that we stop talking about body parts, period. Let us not have these discussions anymore. Don't talk about what makes a perfect penis. Don't talk about what makes a perfect vagina. Don't talk about the opposite. Let's not talk about body shapes. Let's people understand who they are and what they have. We don't need to add to what people already think about themselves. So I'm getting off my soapbox. Dr. Shez, it is your turn to talk about this.
Thank you for your passion, Steph, because I think it's only through our passion that we can enact change. So you know what? Stand on the soapbox. I'm right there with you. Here's the situation, not just with genitalia, but body dysmorphic disorder is more prevalent now than ever because of social media pictures. Like we're now seeing pictures of things of body parts, and it's an idealized social media, filterized version or a porn informed version that we may have not seen in the past. You and I didn't see in pictures what other people's vulvas look like. We didn't see penises. Now we see those. So body dysmorphic disorder, and in particular in this episode, genital dysmorphia, is really important for us to talk about. Our guest today, this young college woman named Teddy, has the courage to share with us her story about these disorders fall under obsessive compulsive disorders. And that makes sense because in order to be diagnosed as a disorder, it has to be, pervasive and disruptive and distressing to everyday life. I'm not sure if Teddy is for sure there with being able to be diagnosed, but she feels flawed. She feels like things that people said create great shame for her. She wants surgery. And that's what we're seeing over and over. And my soapbox is the complete angst in my heart for a medical plastic surgeon doctor performing surgery on a young woman's vulva gets me like absolutely livid because we are not informing and looking at the long-term consequences of those things. And surgery is seen as, oh, easy answer. Let me look like what I'm supposed to look like. So I'm right there with you on this. I want to say that what I loved most about this interview with Teddy was how she brought up her hatred of she calls it vagina, but her hatred of her vagina. And she was able to access what she might say to be more loving and caring and compassionate with that body part. And I really, really want people to hear that. I want people to hear how we talk to ourselves can make a big difference in these kind of things. So let's jump right in with Teddy, such a brave girl, because this is not an easy thing to talk about.
Today we are talking to Teddy Brown. She is a junior at a Pacific Northwest college, and she is anonymous. The topic that we are talking about is genital dysmorphia. And I think that this is not necessarily just female genital dysmorphia. There's also male genital dysmorphia, but it is an incredibly important topic, and you will learn about that, why, and how it impacts our lives throughout the course of this discussion. So welcome to the show, Teddy. I am so excited to talk to you. We could jump right in if you wanted to just tell us a little bit about why this topic is important to you and why you think it deserves a larger platform.
Hi. I was definitely very excited to hear this being spoken about last week when we all met because I've never had the experience or the opportunity to talk about this with somebody in my life. It's something I've experienced, I'd say, since I went through puberty and I started understanding and realizing my body a little bit more. And it's something I've always been insecure about, and I didn't understand that other people felt that way, that it was a shared experience. So it's super important for me now to be able to discuss it just because it makes me feel more included, I'd say. Like I feel like having had this experience, sharing it with others is super important.
Thank you so much, Teddy, for having the courage to share this. And I do want to say out loud that the label body dysmorphia is, there's a range of that. We'll talk about that more, but, your insecurity is on one end of the spectrum of dysmorphia. And then there's another end of the spectrum that is like a total preoccupation with body image in terms of genitalia, if it's genital dysmorphia. Anyway, what we talked about last week is that you had a conversation with one of your roommates about this topic. And this is what we want to spark more and more of these conversations. Can you tell us what you guys talked about and how this came up and where it kind of went and any details of that conversation?
So I hosted a group of my girlfriends and one of my guy friends at my house last week, and we were a few drinks in. And I don't know exactly how the conversation came about, but we were talking about relationships and hookups and this and that. And I had said, like, I would run around naked every day of my life. I love being naked. I love my body. I love all of that. But I was like, but I'm definitely wearing underwear. Like, I hate the way that I look. I hate that. Like, something about my vagina I've always hated. And my friend was like, "No way, like, me too. I don't mind ever being naked, but something about it I don't like." And it was something we were all understanding each other on, and we were laughing. Obviously, at the time, we were like, "That's so hysterical. Like, I've never heard anyone else say that." But once the conversation came about, I realized how many other of my friends felt the same way that I did.
Do you mind describing like what it is in particular about your body, say your vulva or hers or anybody's in general that would be like, is there a specific aspect or is it just in general like I don't like showing my vulva?
I don't like anything about it at all. I don't like the idea of it. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't like looking at it. It's just like not something I've ever liked.
Okay, this is a big topic. Stephanie's ready. Go, Steph.
Mhm.
Well, first, let me ask you this. Do you remember when you first thought, I don't like my vagina? Like, what was there a moment?
I grew up competitively dancing, so I was spending hours and hours on end at the studio with like my same group of girlfriends. So we were super duper close. And I remember we were all on vacation once and we'd all like we were very comfortable being naked around each other. We were constantly changing costume changes, all of it. So we were all getting in the shower and one of my girlfriends said to me, like, "Oh my gosh, like I've never seen it look like that. Like I've never seen that." And I was like, "What do you mean? What does it look like? What's wrong?" And she's like, "No, it just looks different than me. Like, mine doesn't look like that." And I was like, "Oh my gosh. Like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why? Why am I different than everyone else?" And in hindsight, I'm definitely not whatsoever. I think it was just like we were 16, 17, but that's totally the moment that shifted everything for me.
Your story is very common that, first of all, we don't know. Let's just start here. We don't know what vulvas look like. Little boys have been looking at their penis and playing with them from the time they are born. A vulva is hard to see. And to be clear, vulva is all of the outer women parts, and a vagina is the canal that babies come out of. We don't see it, it's hidden. And somewhere in the ether, some man decided this is the vulva that we're going to put in porn that everybody strives for. It looks a lot like a Barbie doll and not a lot
Mhm,
like most people. So the fact that your girlfriend didn't know that yours would look different than hers is absolutely understandable. And your response to it is absolutely understandable because we think, oh my God, what's wrong? Wait, there's something wrong. It's not supposed to look like that. What our vulvas look like is all different. Everybody's different. If you've seen women's boobs, they're all different. You
mhm,
see any penises, they're all different. A lot of what you experience is just because in culture, we don't see what vulvas look like and we shame it. We don't shame it just because of what it looks like. We shame the idea that somebody wants to look at a vulva to see what another vulva looks like. There
mhm.
is a really great Instagram account, which I will link, that shows all different vulvas. And the funniest thing is, I get like, when you're scrolling through your feed, it'll say, sensitive content, do you
Yeah.
still want to see it? And it's a vulva. And I'm like, babies come out of these. Like, these are like part of our bodies. And I like in culture, we want to sexualize it. And I think that's the problem. Somebody has decided that anytime you see a vulva, it should be a sexual thing. And that's why there's shame built into it. I'm sorry that that happened to you because what happened to you and your response is completely normal. And also something that we need to change in our culture?
You knowing that that was the moment tells me as a therapist the level of kind of trauma that started, and I'm not saying like it was like a big traumatic moment, but enough to say, and it kind of was for sure,
Mhm.
but to kind of say like what's wrong with me. And when we have a what's wrong with me but no place to say, to validate like is something wrong with me, like, I don't know if you went to your mom or a parent or a sister or a friend or anybody after that, but if you didn't get the correct information after, then it makes so much sense to me as a therapist that you are continuing this narrative that something's wrong with me, because this little 16-year-old girl who's my dance friend looked at me, innocently, I'm sure,
Mhm.
but didn't have the wherewithal to know that, hey, everybody's is different. So you're noticing one, but like everybody's is different, as Steph is saying. So, anyway, I think it makes sense to me that you've carried that with you. And that's kind of the work of unwinding that, to be like, wait, that narrative has stayed in here and that's not accurate anymore. And that's where I believe this whole rise in, of course, people are profiting off of this mindset, this whole rise in, labiaplasty, where people think there's something wrong with me, so I better go under the knife. Same thing with breast implants, same thing with all these other things that predominantly women go through, because we were fed this narrative even to each other. And that's where we got to start, is even to each other, we're feeding this narrative that something's wrong when
Mhm.
it's actually not.
Definitely. And back then, I did not go to anyone to
You
get
didn't. Okay.
clarification. So that definitely explains why I've carried that with me. And it affects me to this day. Like, I've been in sexual settings where I've said, like, oh, like, maybe let's go to the blanket, or like, let's keep the light off. Or I'd get super embarrassed and I'd be like, no, like, I don't like it. Like, I don't like anything about it. Please. Like, I've had that conversation. I've carried that along with me. So I wouldn't even consider it traumatizing in a sense, but it's definitely weighed on me because I don't feel comfortable fully in who I am, which is a shame because everything else about myself, anyone would say I'm incredibly comfortable and confident.
I want to say this. I remember, and I've told Shez this story because Shez and I have known each other since I was 2 and she was 5.
Aw.
And the funniest thing is that this is true. Back in the days before porn, the very first vulva that I saw that was not my family's, like was not my sister's or whatever, was my sister's friend who was getting in the bathtub, and she was Italian and she was very much more developed than I was, because I was
Than all of us. Let's just say than all of us.
she was than everybody in her class. But, like, I remember she had pubic hair and, like, boobs, and I was fascinated by her vagina, okay, so to this day, I never said anything about it until someone brought up her sister's name, and I go, "Oh, I know her sister. That was the first vulva I ever saw. It was the first pubic hair. It was the first anything, and I was fascinated by it." So we do have this desire as human beings to know, what does it look like? And when we're younger and when we look at other people's, like, hers was definitely different. Probably had I said anything to her, I would have scared her because I was scared. I have never like seen a girl with like pubic hair. So we do have those natural responses. So I guess the reason I'm saying this is for anybody who's carrying a narrative in their head that there's something wrong, like Dr. Shez was saying, it's time to get rid of those narratives because they come from a place of naivete. I didn't know what a vulva looked like. Your girlfriend had probably never even seen her own like vulva, let alone yours.
Mhm.
I've talked to so many college students and women my age who've never taken a mirror and looked at their vulva. They don't really know. All they know is what they've seen in maybe porn or something like that. We're just sorely uneducated on how vaginas vary in shape and size. And there's a lot of social cultural narrative around what a vagina is supposed to look like, smell like, taste like, all of these kind of things that drives that shame cycle and drives people to be insecure. I have some theories on that. I think people are trying to level the playing field. I think if you can make someone feel shame about their body, it like lessens the shame you feel about yours. But I won't
Definitely.
go there. We'll just stick with what the culture is saying. And there's a lot of cultural narrative that drives the shame, insecurity, and just big questions we have about our own body and how it is. But really, it needs to work well, bring pleasure. It is beautiful. It is beautiful by its nature. It's like orchids come in all different varieties, and so do vulvas.
I have a question, Teddy. When you were talking with your friends, what was their experience, if you can share any of that? Like, what did they have a similar kind of event happen? And did you remember and say that to them? Or were you guys all like, just in general, oh my God, I hate my vagina?
It was more a generalization. Nobody really
Okay.
shared why exactly or what made them
Okay.
feel uncomfortable. But we just all shared the same experience of like, we don't like the way it looks.
So is this the first time you've kind of tied it back to that 16-year-old shower event?
No, I've always known that.
You've
I
known.
just
Okay.
honestly, I never shared that with anyone. I would say to all of my friends, like my girlfriends that I grew up with from home, like I've said that to them out loud before, even boyfriends. People around me know that's something that I commonly say, like, I hate I just hate it. And I've always known in the back of my head that is why, but I feel like I never wanted to say that out loud because it would insinuate like something is wrong with me, if that makes sense. And I
Mhm,
didn't want to accept
mhm.
the fact that I felt that way. Like I just wanted it to be more of like an I'm uncomfortable instead of like, no, I really am insecure about the way that I look. Because I didn't want anyone else to think that there was something wrong with me.
Have you looked at your vulva?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you feel like there's something specific you would change about it? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that.
Yes. I would love to have the surgery. Like, you guys are joking about it now, like, I would 100% go and do that. I don't know why I feel like that's what I would like to do. There isn't anything wrong with me, but it's just like it's an insecurity thing.
I wanna say 2 things. One is, so we had a discussion the other day, and we brought up the show. I guess I know it's a British show, but the show Naked Attraction. And what I love about that, there's a lot of things I maybe don't love, but what I love about that is they are showing all shapes and sizes, all colors, all everything. Now they're getting way up close and personal with it and kind of evaluating whether you would date somebody based on genitalia, which is
Mhm.
really a funny premise. But I think that you said in there that that made you feel good, because I said it made me feel good because then you see that, yes, everybody's different. So I'm okay, right? Did you
Mhm.
have that experience like me?
Yes.
So that's one thing. Another thing that I just want to point out, and this is early in our conversation, but I think it's really important. If you had a little sister or a dog or a cat, and every day, all day, you said to that cat, dog person, I hate you. I wish I could change you. You're horrible. Like, I hate what I see. Imagine how that over time feels. My belief is that our body parts and our cells in particular do respond to our narrative, whether it's internally or externally communicated. So it's kind of like that. It's this body part that is our most sacred as women, because it's a birth canal. It is a
Mhm.
place of conception and birth and pleasure. So it is the place that is like, wow, the most amazing. Males don't have a place just for pleasure. We do. That's pretty amazing. To constantly hear as a body part, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And believe me, we do it constantly. I hear myself, or people say, oh my God, I hate my hair. Oh my God, I hate these wrinkles. Oh my God, I hate this, that, and the other, whatever. But I think we need to catch that and stop it, because otherwise, it perpetuates this thing, and I believe our cells listen, so they're gonna be like, "Okay, we're hated. Let's, continue on that path," whatever that means, and never show ourselves or keep the shame going or whatever it is. I'm hoping that this conversation helps to kind of enlighten changing that a bit. What was the resolution or the conclusion that you guys came to, or was there anything, or you just continued on the path of, "Oh my god, me too, I hate it," and then never showing it again, that's it?
We
Was that
definitely segued into another conversation of similar nature. I don't think there was any definitive resolution we came to. it was just an agreement, I'd say.
Okay.
Can I
Okay.
address what you said? And obviously, clearly, I have never seen your labia or your vulva. I'm going to make a jump here. Most people who and I'm not saying this is true of you. Most people who go in for go in for, well, vulvoplasty, but it's called labiaplasty. They go in because of their labia. That's probably the biggest concern. So whether this is your concern or whether it's a listener's concern, it's really important to hear this, that most people, I think it's 55 or 60% of women have labia that extend beyond the labia minora, the thinner inner labia, extend beyond the labia majora, the outer, fatter labia.
Mhm.
So if that is a listener's concern, if that is your concern, if you're like, that's unacceptable, well, it's actually not. It's actually normal. It's actually very normal. So I think it helps to kind of know that, a lot of men, and I'm going to address male issues too, because a lot of men are fearful of the size of their penis. But the average male penis is 5.14 inches. That is not something that you see in porn. In porn, you see 8-inch penises, and there is a reason. That's because it makes it easier to film and all of those kind of things. Porn stars that I've spoken to, they don't even enjoy the sex that they're having with their male counterparts that have these large penises. It's not enjoyable. So it's like these ideas that men have in their head, that girls have in their head, that this is what I have to be, when that's not actually accurate. I went online because we were having this conversation and I looked it up on Reddit, the place to find all sorts of interesting information.
Yeah.
And there were women who were like this one girl, I was like, "Oh my God, I want to find her." Cause she's like, "Listen, I don't have a perfect vulva in any way, but I've never had a man who didn't enjoy having sex with me." And it's not, she went through all the things of the way it's not perfect. And she's just like, "But it works. And it's brought me pleasure and it's brought them pleasure. And I've never had anyone break up with me and it's never been So we tell ourselves these things and we feel like we're going to be happier when we get the labiaplasty, when we get these. But labiaplasty is not without its dangers. All of these things, and just so you know, your inner labia don't have as many nerve endings, but your outer labia do. And any kind of scar tissue can lead to, numbness and all sorts of things. And your pleasure is far more important overall. And as we grow, we learn to love our bigger noses, our bigger this, our, fat under our chin. We learn that this is okay. I am more than my chin. I am more than my nose. I am more than the labia that might hang a little bit longer than a girl in porn. And when we do things when we're young, we can create problems for a long time. No doctor is going to be able to perfectly cut labia, inner labia, to make sure that they're exactly the same length. So you might end up with, like, I did a mini tummy tuck after my babies. Let me tell you something. Now I have a lump of fat on one side and none on the other side. My sisters had plastic surgery. Nothing is perfect. So you're going to go under the knife of some guy or girl who might remove some amount of sensitivity. You may not like it any better. It's better to learn to love what you have and to know that it is beautiful. If it brings you pleasure, it is amazing. And I'm just going to say this, I know this is a tirade and I'm sorry, but clitoris, speaking of pleasure, the clitoris is not just a little nub. It wraps around through the labia majora, the outer labia. All of those areas have nerve endings that are very sensitive. And girl, loving yourself is the most I mean, did you ever see somebody who doesn't fit a traditional like standard of what's beautiful walk in with confidence to something and you're like, "Damn, I wish I had what she had." And it's
Uh-huh.
not what is standard. So you can do the same thing with your body. You can literally talk to your body. You can talk to your vulva and be like, "You are gorgeous. You are amazing. You bring me pleasure. You're beautiful. I love this about you. I love," like, literally talk to yourself. Talk to your vulva.
I love it. I love your tirades because they're important. But what I do want to ask you, Teddy, and this is really could be a weird question, but I
Uh-huh.
really wonder if you can get here for a minute.
Mhm.
If you can really just kind of close your eyes and hone in on that particular body part that has been hated since age 16, I would like to know, what would your vagina say back to you? Let's give that space a voice. I really want to hear what that body part would say.
Definitely something along the lines of, "That's really sad because all I've ever been here is for you, for pleasure," like you guys said before. It's just sad, you know?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So I want you to write that down. I want you to remember that and maybe even keep a dialogue going with her, in a journal, because I want you to get over this is why I'm saying these things. I'm not just saying it for random. I really want you to move past this and without having to do a surgery and
Mm.
risk those things that Steph talked about. But I'd like you to continue the dialogue and then you write back to her and be like, "Oh, man, I'm sorry. Some kid led me down that path, but you're right. You've just been here for me and been here, to be along for the ride, and whatever those words are." But I feel like that's really an important process of healing. And I wouldn't expect you to share that kind of stuff with your friends. But when somebody sees a confident woman in all aspects, and I'm not saying go run around your campus naked or whatever,
Mhm.
but when somebody sees a confident woman, that rubs off on people. And that is like, whoa, okay, she can be confident. I can get some of that too. So it has a ripple effect, but I feel like for you personally is all I'm, caring about in the moment. But for you to be able to move past this would be really big because this is your birth giver. If you're going to have children, this is your birth giver. This is your pleasure center. She's with you for life. You can't cut the whole thing off. You're not going to do that. So she's with you for life as she is, just like our eyes are, our nose are, all those things. And even if they get changed somehow, some way, that little essence of our parts of ourselves are still there. So my hope is that you make friends with her and move forward, knowing that there is no picture of perfection even in a porn thing that everybody thinks or Barbie, that people think that's what it's supposed to look like. That is edited, that is filtered, that is first of all, Barbie has no genitalia. She has no nipples. Like, it's not anatomically correct, Barbie's
Yeah.
not nursing anybody, and her heels are like this. Like, we all know those things are, not anatomically correct. So, but there is no perfection, but we strive for that in society. So starting with young people like you to kind of be like, no, guys, there is no perfection. I'm going to be proud and love myself, even the parts that somebody questioned or that I might question.
When I was in probably my first or second year of college, I had struggled a lot with my own insecurities, and an exercise that somebody that I had spoken to told me was like, take a picture of yourself from when you were little and put it on your mirror. And every time that you're getting ready and you're doing your makeup and you're like, ew, like I don't like the way this looks, or I hate my hair, or I hate this, I hate that. Like think about your little self and like you're saying that to her. That's so mean. Like that's so sad. You would
Yeah.
never say that to a little kid. So that's something
Yeah.
I do and I have been doing in my inner dialogue when I'm having those thoughts. I definitely think of, okay, this isn't something that you can control. This is how you were born. You
hmm
shouldn't be so mean to yourself. It's not your fault, you know?
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing that. And, that tool is an excellent tool. And to do the same thing for a particular body part is great. And what I want to say too, Teddy, is we all do this. We all do it to varying degrees with different things. So know that you're the brave one talking about this, but I don't know of a woman or a girl. I won't speak for men, but I don't know of a woman or girl that I know that doesn't do this kind of stuff. So we all have to level up here. But in order to be happier, and that's the goal, or more at peace is really the goal. But I love that tool. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, put a picture of your vulva if you want. Love her.
I want to just move our conversation from this to something that may be more relatable to a larger audience. And not that I don't think it's important. We are going to go back to it. I have some thoughts on what we just talked about. But I do know, and here's my story that happened when my daughter was about 14. They were talking about DJ Khaled, and they were saying how her and her girlfriends, and how he wouldn't go down on his wife. And I overheard this conversation, and my porn mom ears perked up, and I was like, what are they talking about? Why would DJ Khaled, and why is this a conversation that my 14-year-old daughter is having? And when I questioned the girls, they were all like, well, it's gross. So it's not just what our vulvas look like that are free roaming for anyone to criticize. People feel like they have the right to say this, but they're also talking about taste. Kim Kardashian was like, drink pineapple juice if you wanted to taste blah, blah, blah. It's not that I think it shouldn't be discussed. I think we have to be conscientious of the words and the impact of what we're saying and how we're saying and what it implies. And I think so many people are untouchable. None of us are ever going to know what Kim Kardashian's vagina tastes like. None of us.
Mhm.
We have no idea whether her drinking pineapple juice really made her vagina taste any better. I'm sorry, Kim Kardashian. It's just so irresponsible I think, to say these things with the idea, because the idea is that your vagina on its own has a weird taste without pineapple juice. For all we know, Kim Kardashian's vagina tastes, however, I'm not shaming her, but we have no idea, you know? And so I just think it's irresponsible to be saying all of this stuff. DJ Khaled, he won't go down on his wife, sending little girls these messages that like there's something wrong inherently with their vulvas and that men's penises are supposed to be sucked, but women's vulvas are gross and not to be touched. And I hate almost even having this conversation because it's like I'm driving the stereotypes further, but it's real. I talked to my daughter today and she goes, "Oh, mom, she's in high school." She's like, "Genital shame is real." She's like, "I see it all the time." And she's like, "And girls shame other girls." Now, I think probably in college, you're beyond that, but maybe do you remember the conversations about the girl who might have had sex with too many people? There's conversations about how big is their vagina? Oh, their vagina is so loose. Like all of these things. Stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
We are shaming people. How big is a guy's penis? Oh, it's the size of a straw. Like, stop. He's not circumcised. Like, stop. It curves to the left. I don't care. The point is that all of these conversations, and so I'm going to turn it over to you, Teddy. These conversations, do you agree with me that they are part of the cultural narrative that just serves to make people shamed?
Definitely. The age I'm at now, where I'm on my last year of college, I'm about to be an adult in the real world, those conversations have dwindled. I think it's an immature conversation when kids, not even kids, when young adults are first starting to understand and experiment with their sexuality, these conversations are had because it's a new thing for everyone. At that point, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the extent of damage that you're causing by having these conversations. But for sure, I remember 2, 3 years ago, even in high school, that being talked about, especially in high school when you have no idea what you're saying. You have no idea what any of it means, what's normal and not normal, for sure. Yes.
My guess is, and Steph, you're the expert in this, but sex ed in high school is not sharing that every body is different. They're showing the anatomically correct labeling of things that look all shoot, 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 that are all in an order. And they're not showing or sharing that, hey, everybody is different, you know? Is that accurate in sex education?
It is. Obviously you have more progressive schools, but I think, and my whole thing altogether, the whole reason I'm writing my book is because parents have to open these conversations. And
Mhm.
to be fair, I would say this to my son too. I don't know what my son's genitalia looks like. I have no idea whether he holds some sort of ideas that his is not good or his is great. Like, I don't know what it is, but I know that it's really important for me to say to my children, male or female, that we should really be conscientious of the conversations that we're having about body parts. None of us can change. Yes, you can go get your labia snipped. for the most part, you can't change those things. I get that, like, when you're in high school, or maybe when you're in college, or maybe when you're a young adult, like, all of these things about the way someone looks hold so much more importance. But the people who are having real relationships where they're building intimacy and they have trust, and they can hold each other's secrets and loyalty and all these kind of stuff, as you're going up a more healthy relationship route, these things are just, they aren't important, as you go through life. And it was interesting because doing this research, I went online, and there's just an inordinate amount of people online interviewing people about, like, do you like your penis? How responsible are women for the size of their vaginas? Do you like a big, like, and I'm like, this is crazy. The older people, though, that got interviewed in street interviews were like, it really doesn't matter. It's like, it is a thing of immaturity and youth and these kind of more superficial relationships. I don't, I
Mhm.
mean, I could be wrong, Dr. Shez, but like, that's the way I see it. The more you're in a loving, trusting relationship, we have to share all of our moles and scars and things with our intimate partners, and those things become less important.
I have a question, Teddy. Do you think it would have helped if your, let's say, mother had early on shared with you anything about the fact that all variations are normal, quote unquote? Do you think it would have helped you in that situation to say to that girl, I'm fine. They're all different, honey, or whatever? I don't know. But do you think that would have made a difference?
I think yes, it would have. My mom and I are extremely close, and I think that she never even thought to have that conversation with me. I mean, like I said before, I love being naked. My second birthday, like, I was always naked, like, all the time. So I think she never had the thought in her mind that, like, maybe I should let her know that. But I seem so confident, I seem so comfortable that I don't think she even felt the need to, like, have that conversation with me. I never said a word about it, you know? And I
Right.
didn't wanna go to her either because I was embarrassed, you know? And not
Right.
that I didn't wanna trust her, but I think saying it out loud would admit that I was embarrassed and admit that maybe there was something quote unquote wrong. But I also would have been like, "Oh, you're just my mom. Of course you're gonna say that to me." Like, maybe it would have took someone other than my mother, you know?
Right.
Like
Right.
my boyfriends have said the same thing, like, throughout 4 or 5 years I've had different long-term relationships, and they've all said that to me. But I'm like, "Well, you're my boyfriend, of course you're gonna say that." Like, blah, 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 you know?
Do you believe it today after this conversation?
Definitely. Yes,
Yay. Good.
definitely.
I want to say something too, because I don't know that I completed my thought, but I don't think it's just your mother's responsibility to tell you that all vulvas look different. I think it's your mother's responsibility to also say to you, all penises look different.
Yeah.
Our
Mhm.
bodies are what they are. We
Yeah.
can't change them, and they're beautiful. And it's really important for you to realize that you don't know what your partner's going to look like. And when we don't like our bodies and all we're thinking about is our vulva doesn't look good, it's too hairy, it's too labia are too long, it's too fat, it's too this, it's not pink enough, it's smells, it's that, like, all of the thoughts, like, my penis isn't big enough. It's not fat enough. It's not long enough. It's uncircumcised. It's circumcised. It's weird. It bends to the left. It has a wart. All of these things, we're here. Sex does start in our heads. Sexual arousal starts in our brains. But if we can't get out of our head and we don't ever embody the sexual, like, arousal, sex will never be enjoyable. And too many people have, like, had, and let me ask you this, Teddy, does this fear of, or this dislike of your vulva, do you think that it has inhibited your sexual pleasure?
To an extent. Back to the conversation that you said your daughter you'd overheard about DJ Khaled, the
Mhm.
whole going down on women, that aspect, definitely. Otherwise, no, it doesn't really affect my experience. When you get a good look, that's what makes me uncomfortable. That's when I start to, like, shut down.
So those are, baby steps to work towards, and being comfortable within yourself first is what needs to happen before the comfort can be extended to another person. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
being accepting and loving and comfortable with me first is where the work starts. if you want to change this without surgery, and I hope you do because it's kind of an easy fix, it is all up here, but it takes like, kind of repetition and attention in that way because we've been fed this narrative for so long.
And it
Yeah,
gets reinforced through culture all the time.
constantly.
Can I make a suggestion? I know this is a really this okay, so vulvas and penises, testicles, they change through life. Like this doesn't end. That like this is not going to end. Even if you get whatever kind of surgery you feel like will help you, it will not
Mhm.
end. I have a friend who said to me, "It is amazing that my pink labia turned into brown labia after giving birth." And I was like, "Oh my God, I haven't looked since I gave birth." Like, I don't know. I had no idea that it can change, but these things can change. Shape, size, color, whatever will change over the course of your life. And I think it's important to, just like we do any kind of self care, whether it's going to get a massage or, like learning to stand in the mirror and look at your body and going, like, that doesn't bother me. I like my body, looking at your vulva, saying you like it, but also giving it self care. There are amazing and like healthy organic creams that you can use on your vulva. You're gonna laugh, but for Christmas I literally gave everyone, not everyone, my son and my husband.
Oh,
They were like, "You're so weird, mom," and my husband was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's ball care. Like they have creams for it." And I was like, "Oh,
whoa.
it's organic and it's healthy." Like I love that. Like I use stuff like that now. Like, I think it's like, I don't think it's necessary, but I think that like all of these things that are organic, it's like we take care of, I put stuff on my dry elbows. I do all of these things. So you can actually take care of your vulva, whether it's Brazilian wax or whatever it happens to be, do it so that you feel the best you can about it. Like we do
Uh-huh.
make our parts, hair, face, whatever we do. So do the things that you need to do. I'm not recommending douches. Those things are horribly, horribly chemically and bad. But, do some research and I'll link some things because self-care makes you feel better, makes you love it more.
We're almost out of time, but I think this is an important topic to bring up. I know that there is a big trend these days to bleach assholes, or what do you call them? Anuses, to, to bleach them now. And so that to me is like, who started that trend where like the natural color is not okay? It needs to be some version of white for some reason. Like where did that start? And how healthy is that? Like I'm putting then a chemical on an important functional part of my body that needs to excrete and detox waste. And so I'm putting
Toxic
bleach there,
chemicals
toxic
on it.
chemicals there. So like these things that are in trend or in vogue, I think we would need to really think about like where did that come from and why? And it changes with time, like you're saying. In the Victorian ages, it was something else, and but it's like, wow, guys, that's what we're doing. So I'm sure you've had people or know of people, Teddy, that are doing that these days because it does seem to be a lot of young people. I don't know if that too comes from the Kardashians or if you know where that comes from, but that to me is like, wow, okay, that's where we are. We've got to go pay for this other thing. And, not we, but people feel that sometimes that,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay, in order to be attractive, I need to have a white anus. Hmm. What do you think about that, guys?
I've actually never heard of anyone my age
You
doing
haven't?
that.
Okay.
Maybe they do, and it's like an unspoken thing, but I've heard of it being a thing. Just I've never heard of anyone saying that they've done that or thought about it or even had a problem with that.
Okay. Okay. That makes me happy.
I've
Good.
heard it in songs, definitely.
In songs.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks, songwriters, for pushing something like that. Thanks very
Uh-huh.
much.
Now that we've had this conversation, does this tell me, does this make you feel a little bit more in touch with that, or like it feels like a relief to be able to say it and to actually like verbalize what you're feeling?
It's definitely a relief saying it out loud and getting the confirmation that I'm justified in the way that I'm feeling, but I shouldn't be feeling that way. Like, you would understand why all of this time I've had that feeling, but it shouldn't be that way. So that's definitely nice. And it is nice to know that I'm not the only one struggling with it and that it's a common thing that you're seeing.
I will say this, in doing research for this, I like I said, I went on YouTube, and I'm 54 years old. I never thought twice about my vulva because porn was not as prevalent as it is today. But even watching that stuff like online, like these men on the street, these interviews, I started to feel like, "Oh my god," like, I started to like, the words were getting into my head. So I will say to people, you do have a choice to turn off that type of, like, rhetoric from entering our mind, right? Like, we are what we eat. So, like, whether that's we take it in this way, we take it in however whatever we ingest into our body, we are that, right? So if
Yeah.
we take that kind of narrative into our brain all the time, we're going to believe it, right? So you can choose to listen to more pro or healthy ideas about your vulva than listening to men talking about it. There is an insensitivity when it comes to women talking about men's genitalia, and an insensitivity when it comes to men talking about female genitalia. And I hate to make this so cisgendered and, whatever, but it seems to be when we're talking about the opposite sex, it's a lot easier to like dismiss a penis or dismiss a vulva and like say it like it's funny and get like, bro attention for saying it, or girls going, "Oh yeah, like, blah blah blah." But we do have a choice to not engage in that, to not listen to it,
Mhm.
to put more positive thinking toward it, because they're not going to change. Like your body's not going to change. It's going to change over time, and whatever you took care of before, you're going to have to retake care of later. And I'll tell you what, little noses are a big thing. And like I said earlier, Sophia Coppola is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, with her nose that's like very Roman. I'm sure that wasn't easy to live with in Hollywood, where everyone has these perfect little noses. But my God, you see her and you go, yes, girl,
Yeah.
I want to be like that, right? You can embrace what you have. You can go, I love it. Talk to it, make it beautiful, do whatever you want to do with it, have a spa day with it, and
Yeah.
look at other vulvas. Look at other vulvas.
Yeah. What was the words that she said to you in the shower again?
It was like, "Oh, I've never seen it look like that."
Okay. Okay. So what would be the opposite of that?
Maybe not opposite phrasing, just opposite tone,
Okay.
like having a positive connotation instead of like a negative connotation
Yeah.
behind it.
Ooh, like you're special, like
Yeah, like,
unique.
"Oh, I've never
Yeah,
seen that before." Like, that's cool.
that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Okay,
cool.
I love
Yours
it.
looks different than mine. That's amazing.
And
Wow. So like
it
flowers.
should, like you said the word should, and it should look different because nothing that's the beauty of being human is there is nobody like me, nobody like you, nobody like you. So, okay, I love that. You're so smart, Teddy. My God, I would not have thought of that. Change the tone and reframe it in your mind, really cement that in that it could be that she was meaning it in that way. We know maybe she wasn't. I don't know. She was 16, who knows? And that
Mhm.
comes from her own insecurity, I'm sure. But rephrase it for yourself in that way with a different tone and see how that lands for you. I want to say about the word should too. I've always said that word. I would love should to be deleted from, the world because should lands on our shoulders and it's very heavy. So there are no shoulds. But like Steph was saying, you have the opportunity to really choose. And so instead of I should do this, I'm choosing to love all parts of myself. I'm choosing to accept just as I am because that's what it is. Like I can't change unless I'm going to go do a million surgeries.
Mhm.
The word choice is a beautiful thing. And that's something we have as humans is free will and choice for a lot of things, especially your feelings about yourself and your body. That's all in your domain of choice
I
for
love
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You know what, Teddy? The other thing is, some people may not have had this, but what about giving some credence and weight to what your previous lovers have said? It
Mhm.
worked for them. They liked it. Like,
Yeah.
why do you wanna hear the 16-year-old girl instead of the 2, 3 lovers, 1 lover that you had? Whose opinion is more important? Your
Yeah.
lover didn't care.
Uh-huh.
the 16-year-old girl said something that you took a certain way because we're all insecure. We all want to be accepted. If they told you that your eyebrows were too thick, you'd be like, oh my God. And then, then that Brooke Shields walks in and she's got these big, thick eyebrows, like, so it's like one girl's opinion versus somebody who's actually intimate with you. How about that? Just listen to him.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that you did watch Naked Attraction because I do feel like there are so many parts of it that I'm kind of questioning, but it's so nice to have this image of all different people's body parts. Normalizing the fact that we're all different is beautiful.
And keep talking to your friends. Keep talking to them. Tell them.
Yes.
Tell them to love their vulvas.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Tell
We
men to
need
love their
change that.
penises. When you hear something, say something. Say, you know what? Uncool. You have no idea what this guy's penis looks like. That's uncool. You can call people out. Call people higher. Hey, we should be building people up, not tearing them down, not giving them insecurities.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're really good at doing that. We're not so good at the other. You've been an amazing guest. We really appreciate you being so open, just really sharing from the heart. And I want to check back and see how things are progressing for you. If you feel better about things, a week or month or whatever out from today.
Definitely. And thank you guys for having me and providing this safe space to talk about these things that normally I would not have the opportunity to talk about. It's really awesome.
Viva la vulva.
Viva la vulva. You are such a beautiful girl. You're not on camera, but I just want to say your confidence exudes. Like I would never have guessed that you had a confidence issue in that area. So it's just bringing it down there too. You've got it everywhere else. Bring it there. Bring it whole body.
I agree 100%. Teddy, you're an amazing guest. Thank you for your honesty. Go forth and love your vulva.
Will do.
All right.
Yay. We'll check in. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
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 Thank you for joining us for this episode of 7 on Sundays.
The 7 on Sundays podcast represents the opinions of Dr. Shez Leby and Stephanie Boy based on our experience. It also shares the stories, behaviors, and opinions of our guest that we do not necessarily condone or view as healthy. 7 on Sundays is an open forum to discuss what is happening with our listening audience. Some names and details of our guest stories have been changed to protect their anonymity. This podcast is not a substitute for mental health treatment. If you are in crisis and in need of mental health support, please call 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is free and confidential.
Join the conversation and connect with us through our website, 7onsundays.com. That's the number 7 on Sundays.com. We encourage everyone to do their own research. Thank you and be well.